Remember what it was, Steve, that you,
Miriam, when you give me the signal is when I will start said meeting. I think Tom o'clock lies.
no, that, I called you about that. I haven't talked to you about that.
I cannot
This
wait
was
for
just
Dairy
a general curiosity. It was,
I'm
somebody
excited for Dairy
asked me, one of my neighbors asked me a question.
Vanilla
Oh, it
butterscotch
was
dipped
about the
cone.
one, the two
Lights out.
coming out from the sump pump.
Oh, yeah.
And you were going to, because it said two different things and it wasn't clear.
I did not follow up on that. Okay.
That was
Good.
just-
Good evening. I'll call to order the Plan Commission meeting Thursday, September 7th, 2023, 7 p.m. Would you please take the roll, Marion?
Mayor Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Hogan,
Here.
Commissioner Haley,
Here.
City Engineer Morrow,
Here.
Alderwoman Day, Commissioner Leon.
Here.
I am the planner, Marion X. We also have planning intern Anna Kissel and the Director of Administration, Kelly Hirsch, present.
Excellent. We have a quorum. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item B, approval of minutes. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of August 17th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item C, public hearing business matters. We would like to start with Marion on this?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll read the public hearing notice. The City of Franklin Plan Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin 53132, to take public comment regarding a request by Dharmesh Galani, AK Developers LLC, for property located at 7730 South Lovers Lane Road. The request is for an application for a special use to allow for a drive-through as part of a restaurant development. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements and standards of 15-30701 General Standards for Special Uses, 15-30703 Detailed Standards for Special Uses in Non-Residential Districts, and 15-90103 Applications for Special Use Permit of the Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. A copy of the proposed special use resolution in draft form and the applicant's application submittal is available for public inspection in the Department of City Development here at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, during normal business hours. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and provide input.
So I'd like to open the hearing at, I was waiting for that. I mean, I had two ways to go, and I knew someone was going to be wrong. Yes, sir.
Just plan commission rules. Notice. F.
Mhm.
Development, then the application. Question. Then public comment.
Okay, so I do have a brief presentation. As we mentioned, this property is located at 7730 South Lovers Lane Road. It's located in the Civic Center District, which includes the Target and Pick and Save at the corner of Drexel and Lovers Lane. This is a currently vacant lot. The applicant is seeking special use permission for an approximately 2,000 square foot Dairy Queen drive-through restaurant. And the building will have two spaces in it, one for the Dairy Queen and one for the for a tenant space, but the special use applies to the totality of the property. The site plan included in the packet is a conceptual plan for the development with two businesses. And there will be full site plan review at a subsequent meeting, but they were waiting to obtain this approval before going through the full design step. So the lot is zoned Civic Center. Eating places are an allowed use. However, drive-throughs require special use approval in all districts except for PDD 13. So due to the location close to residential properties, we do recommend limiting the hours of operation to no later than 10 p.m. as a condition of approval of this special use. And as part of the site plan approval, there are required buffer yards and other screening landscape requirements that will be part of that review. However, if there are conditions you'd like to suggest, that is your option. The UDO covers that pretty comprehensively because there is a residential area to the north. The applicant has provided responses to general standards and complies with them. The development is consistent with the existing zoning requirements and future land use. The conceptual site plan does provide adequate queuing space, so the minimum requirement is 7 queuing spaces, and there will be adequate queuing space. So conceptually, the site will have the restaurant located towards the north end of the property with parking spaces to the south. There's more than adequate access within the development itself. So other developments in the Shops at Wyndham Village do include drive-through uses, the Summit Bank and Bigby Coffee specifically. And then future users of the tenant space will be required to complete a separate approval for whatever that tenant is. So either a zoning compliance or a special use, depending on the user. So it's a vacant lot. Staff recommends limitations on the hours of operation, but otherwise recommends approval. So.
So at this point, are we entertaining questions, or are we going to the presentation by the applicant? Applicant, excellent, sounds good.
Hi, I'm Nick Fuchs, representing the property owner and the developer. I don't have a lot to add. The additional 10 spaces within building, we're anticipating that'd probably be up, probably 2 tenants. But we'll confirm that as the development moves on, as we find tenants. Otherwise, I'd just reiterate that you know, with the, even at a conceptual level, I think the site design shows sufficient queuing, parking. And then we do agree to the condition on the hours. So the Dairy Queen restaurant and drive-through will close by 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission at this point? Mr. City Engineer?
Yep. So seeing how meetings around here regularly last till 10 o'clock, I'm kind of bummed that you're going to close at 10, but I'll be with that. Question for you on the driveway going to the west. Can I assume that you're making use of the existing approach, the one that lines up with the driveway across the drive aisle?
Yeah, that'd be anticipated.
Okay. That's it.
I will add, the Shops at Wyndham Village has a circulation plan, so I've had a brief discussion about site design with Dairy Queen's overall architectural firm, and they don't really expect to amend that, but it would be part of that process, is to make sure that any development here is part of the, addresses that question of the circulation plan, so.
I'm looking at this itinerary here. After this, do we have any questions for the owner? The applicant itself, other than the rep? Nothing? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. Now we can open up the public hearing. So right now, the public hearing is open. Anybody wishing to come up, state your name and address for the record, and you can address at the podium. Good evening, sir.
Robert Mim, 9825 West St. Stephen's Drive. I guess my question is, because I don't recall that I live in the subdivision to the north, and I was wondering, looking at that, what kind of screening is going to be required to the north there, and to make sure that the signage how long the signage is definitely going to be off, because I live there, and we were told, for instance, that the Target sign was going to always be off, I believe around 10 o'clock, and it's not off after 10 o'clock. It's always lit. And I know from our homeowners association meetings, there are several people that live on that right along Drexel Avenue there that find the lighting a big distraction and a big deal, and and they say that they've contacted the city. They say that they've asked about the lighting being turned off after 10 o'clock, but it doesn't appear to ever happen. So I guess my primary question is, what kind of screening is going to be required to, between the building to the north there and the roadway?
There is a landscape buffer easement requirement, or landscape buffer required between different zoning districts. So we will have landscaping requirements. There's existing trees there now. I'm not aware of the issues with the signage, but I can look into the status of any complaints, and that could be an additional condition of the special use, that any illumination, because the lighting plan is part of the site plan design, but the signage is a separate approval. But you could impose that condition as well, that the signage, the lighting, because it is, there'll be channel letter signs that are required, that they be turned off at a specific time as
Do you
well.
have a card to present to the
I
gentleman?
do.
Sir, Marion will give you her card to follow up on that lighting, because that needs to be addressed. Anyone else wishing to step forward? Excellent. Hello, welcome. Just your name and address, please.
Kimberly Eckhart. I too live in that subdivision north, 9777 West St. Stephen's Drive. I have two questions. Is that a singular drive-through, single car lane drive-through? Okay, and what kind of traffic are they, business-wise, are you anticipating? Like volume? Okay, and that needs a special assessment or a special, to have the drive-through?
The procedure today is what's called a special use application. So the restaurant is an allowed business type, but the drive-through requires this extra level of public input, and it has to be approved by Common Council. So that's the process that we're going through now. It's not a special assessment. It doesn't directly affect that aspect of the site, but it's what types of uses and activities are allowed on the site.
Okay, and then you say there's potential for 2 other occupants in that, and what kind of businesses might those be?
They would have to fit within the zoning of the Civic Center District. Generally speaking, it allows for commercial business types, restaurants. The Big B Coffee is a good example, or the pet store that's there. So typically commercial or office uses.
Okay,
So,
all right, that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak on this issue? Seeing no one else, close the public hearing. Commissioner Leone.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on a couple of comments from neighbors, have questions, I think, for the applicant and maybe staff. This is an area that I drive by quite a bit, and I believe that aside from Target, none of the signage faces north, right? That the signage, it's the backs of those buildings, and that the signage would face to the west
Highway 100. Yeah.
or to the south for people who are already in that area. So is the applicant, or probably the rep, able to talk about which directions channel signs would point at this stage, if basically that wouldn't be a concern because they wouldn't be facing north? I do have a follow-up question.
Being the special use and looking for the drive-through approval, I mean, we really haven't got to the details of, sign plans or sign design. I thought, and I haven't been by, I guess, in a while, that there were signs on the buildings on the north side.
Okay.
But I think we'd be consistent with the signage there.
Okay.
If there's a lighting concern and they need to be shut off at a certain time, that'd certainly be acceptable. But we'll certainly consider that when we get to the sign design and those details.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I remember wrong, but I thought north facing was basically the backs of buildings, and there weren't really any channel letter signs on there, but I could have that wrong. And then I guess two more questions, actually. As I'm looking at the traffic pattern for the drive-through, it looks like, if you can go back to that last slide, please, that as they would queue up, they would initially go to the north, turn west, and then looks like maybe order so that they're pointing southwest and then south. So I think that nighttime hours, there'd be.
The lights won't be on the
Yeah, the
houses.
lights would be facing into Wyndham Village rather than across the street to the north. That's what the layout looks like to me. And then actually, the second question I was going to ask is to do with the signage again. I believe that if you're driving west on Drexel, you would have to turn in to, at the roundabout further east to access it from there, because there's no turn in there if you're westbound on Drexel, right? There's actually a barrier that prevents anyone from turning. So as I'm looking at it, and I certainly don't claim to know your business, but the signage pointing west would be the signage that would face anybody coming in, right? That if it were to point north, you really wouldn't be advertising to anybody because they would already be past it. So I just think maybe as you're going through the signage plan, maybe look at what's the right location to satisfy neighbors to the north so that they don't have channel lit signs facing their way. And really, I think you'd get a lot more visibility if those signs were on the west side of the building.
Okay,
Just-
yeah, we
just
can
a-
definitely
A thought.
take a look at that. And I know there were concerns and lighting issues. I think, initially the Summit Credit Union had some lighting
Yeah.
concerns with the neighbors. So we recognize that, and, we'll do our best to accommodate that, keep that existing buffer that's there. We'll certainly add landscaping, so hopefully that'll make it compatible for the neighbors.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, if, along with meeting with staff, if you just want to allay some of the concerns of neighbors to the north, I think that would go a long way in making this another successful project. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Mr. City Engineer.
To answer Commissioner Leon's question, I'm looking at Google Maps, and looks like all those businesses do have signage, but with all the trees, it's really hard to see them, and obviously this was taken in the daytime, so it doesn't look like they're illuminated. Looks like there's some with windows that maybe you can see something in the window, but for the most part, all the trees are pretty much screening everything.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So it sounds like there are some screens already. Maybe just not for that. It's not due to the application. That target sign might be a separate issue that staff's already said they'll address. Thank you, City Engineer.
Any further comments from the commissioners or staff? Marion.
I do want to note, for the sake of this discussion, there is an existing monument sign on the northwest corner of the site. It's a shared tenant sign. The applicants don't plan to make any changes on it that would require amendments to the master sign program, but it has tenant signage for other tenants. So, and it's this bar here. So it is facing, lost my mouse, northwest, but that's existing and as part of the master sign program. So if it required a change, the Plan Commission would see it. If not, it would just conform with whatever the master sign program allows. So
Mr. City Engineer on that?
So again, using Google Maps, Wyndham Village has their monument sign on the opposite corner, and this one says Target and Pick and Save, so.
right, but it's part of the approved master sign program.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments from anyone? Nothing? Okay, entertain a motion on this?
You have a motion?
Is there a motion to
I
read?
thought there was a motion to be read on this.
Do you want me to read the motion?
Please.
A motion to recommend approval of a resolution imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a special use for a Dairy Queen restaurant in a single building with a drive-through which wraps the building upon property located at 7730 South Lovers Lane Road.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you and welcome. See you at the commission next, or at the council. All right, item D is in David. Tuckwood Country Club Golf Simulator Tent. You want to read that?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, planning intern Anna Kissel, this is her item, and she will be presenting the
All
item.
right. The whole world is watching, Anna.
Put it closer to you,
Okay, can you hear me?
a little closer.
A little closer.
It's like karaoke, just bring it in.
Right?
Okay. All right, so this is a temporary use for a golf simulator tent at the country club. So if we zoom in, it'll be in the back parking lot area where there's normally the golf carts parked during the regular season. So this is, the tent will be from October 23rd to March 30th, so during the off season. So the intent is to have country club members able to still golf just in a simulator fashion during the off season. It'll be heated, and the intent is to potentially, it'll be in operation from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday, with the possibility to extend operating hours to 11:59 p.m. For special events as needed. It needs a approval by Plan Commission because the requested period of operation is longer than 30 calendar days. Staff recommends approval. We don't have any conditions on the approval.
Thank you. Any comments from commissioners? Mr. State Engineer.
Is this expected to be an annual issue?
Can you use the, please?
Yes, please state your name and address, please.
My name is Joel Boyce, and I'm the general manager for Tuckaway Country Club. I live in Milwaukee, so you want my
Use
address?
Tuckaway Country Club.
Okay,
address.
6901 West Drexel Avenue. This is a possibility of being an annual type of thing. We don't know what our member use is going to be. We have a lot of people who leave the state and go south for the winter, so we don't really know. This is kind of just us doing an exploratory thing as a possible long-term permanent structure being built. And I always say by the time that I will be retired. So it's just something that we're looking at trying to explore and expand upon depending on member use.
The reason why I ask is we have lots of events that pop up every year and just really tend to clutter our agendas, and it'd be nice if we could just blanket give an approval. So if it works out well, let's talk about how to make it permanent.
I would absolutely love that.
Any other questions or comments from commission members? Now, just like the last one, I do not have any sort of motion on this at all. I have nothing in my packet.
Motion to adopt a resolution imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval of a temporary use for a golf simulator tent for property located at 6901 West Drexel Avenue at Tuckaway Country Club.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Whoever got the skill set to turn off the cameras?